Suara Inspirasi,
where every voice tells a story.
and every story will inspire you.
Okay, we are back on the second episode.
Second segment, my man.
Okay,
You're
second.
going to drift the car some more.
Too much excitement on it. Anyway, we're back on the second segment. Thanks, Junkai, for your time. This segment, I think we want to divulge more about how you're managing your existing clients and basically, namely all your major clients. And every client has different kinds of needs and requirements. And how do you manage all those things like your Nike, your FedEx, your Disneys and all that kind of stuff? Maybe you could just, without going through any NDAs or whatever, maybe you could share some things that, what are the interesting facts? And I guess everyone is different and how you get them hooked on you.
I think for me, it was a function of two things from a commercial perspective, the way I looked at it. Not just as a founder, I think in general for most, let's say, entrepreneurs or most, let's say, folks in startups, never be shy from talking to your client. The irony is that I've seen quite a bit of even salespeople who are afraid of just speaking to your clients. A lot of times, what I really meant by that is taking the time to do basic discovery on what your client problems are. I think that is the most underrated skill that a lot of people do not really have. Most of the time when we look at sales folks or generally folks who are managing clients, key account managers and whatnot, a lot of what they do is, I have a product, I have a service, I want to sell. A better approach would be, first and foremost, sitting them down and understanding what kind of problem statements do they really have? What kind of pain points do they really have first?
Yep.
And then taking the first 30, 45 minutes, just really understanding their current ways of working. Because chances are you're dealing with a large organization with very defined processes and very defined, let's say, setups. Your job is not to induce another level of complexity. Your job is to understand what kind of problems they are facing and how you fit into that problem itself. Sounds simple, but the reality is not a lot of people do it. I think that's number one. Number two, at least for me, it's from a commercial perspective, is really about working backwards. At the end of the day, from a logistic perspective or even from a supply, like service provider perspective, what we usually miss out on is what do our clients actually really, really, really want, right? What is the outcomes? What's their KPIs that really matters to them? And then you work backwards to see how whatever you have lines up to that number itself. And that applies to any kind of clients, right? Large, medium, small ones, even the international brands, right? And actually that's as simple as it gets. I think that's kind of the way I see this. Just spending a lot of time with the clients, talking to them, asking them time of the day, look, you have 45 minutes, you have 1 hour a day, 1 hour to meet with me, for example, right? Prepare. Go there, speak to them, understanding the processes, understanding the issues and whatnot, and then working backwards from what KPIs they want to achieve. And that's it. And like Sundar, what you actually mentioned, every client is a little bit different.
Correct.
So you can't just do a cookie cutter vanilla approach to pass it on to the client and expecting them to adopt that, because you're just gambling, right, at that point of time. Maybe there are certain customer segments that allow for that kind of setup, business models and whatnot. But at least for us, because we go after medium to larger enterprises.
Okay.
So it has to be a very tailored and customized approach.
I think just a little bit deep down, I think, Adlin, both of us, we always hear, this is a common factor when we have a lot of B2B businesses, right? And the key thing is, the key success, which I hear and also works for me well in my multiple experiences in most of my business, is always, like what you said, listening to your client and identifying the gap that they always have. And we have won various huge contracts just because, against giants, right?
Yep.
And just because we were the one listening to the client, right? And we were the one can deliver what they actually want, rather than, hey, this is my product, this is what I have, you take it or leave it, right? Kind of stuff. So I think this approach is, even today, even we as a company, businesses, even whatever businesses you want to engage and stuff like that, you will probably go and choose a business that is really listening and give you what you really want. You have moderated a lot of events like this, Adlin, in terms of customer focus, and what do you think about that?
No, I agree with you. I think, Junkai, to add on what you said, right? Most, I would say salespeople, let's not touch CEOs, right?
Okay.
I think the mentality is they don't want to ask or understand the pain points of the client. Guess what? Because they're chasing the next client. They don't have the time to say, hey man, how do I help you more? Because they don't think about sweating the asset. They're thinking about the next big fish that they can close, right? To get their commission, to get their bonuses, right? But the truth is, like what you mentioned earlier, right? If you sweat an asset big enough, $1 million contract can be $10 million over a couple of years, right?
Exactly.
And I think we miss the forest for the trees here.
Yep.
From your perspective, and I'm going to head that to the question after this, is the fact that you have to show scale. You're a venture funded startup, you got to go from 30 million, 40 million, 100 million, 200 million, 300 million. You're like, whatever it takes, guys, go out and canvas the market. Numbers. What's the word? What do you usually say, right? It's about quantity over quality, right? It's about getting as many customers on, using you as much as they can and being sticky, right? And then as you scale the business 5, 6, 10 years on, you're like, hey man, it's quality customers. They're loyal with us. And how do we sort of keep them, for every dollar more that they can put in?
End of the day, this is the essence of most of the business, where your business is going to come from. Where are you dragging your business, and how do you scale this business? And rightly mentioned, that's the reason that, and especially the B2B clients, that listening is really, really, really the key.
That's true. No, I think you can't run away from that. I think that's the core essence of it.
Simple as it is, but the problem is a lot of people don't do it.
Yeah, I think they are obviously, like, this is a relatively nuanced conversation where you are going after a B2B segment, so therefore you have to do this. I mean, there are also approaches where a light touch will also apply, but that's only applicable if you're going after a 2C segment, or a segment that has a very broad base, where the requirements are maybe more prioritizing over convenience, over, let's say, customization, for example, right? And there are obviously business model for that, but at least for ours, so far, what I've seen, we can't run away from not talking to our customers. I think there's no substitute for that. And that's something that, for us, we're still learning. Now it's just about how to be a bit more efficient with our own times and resources. That's it.
So pro tip, guys, know your customers, listen to them.
Correct.
Regardless if you're B2B or B2C, right?
Actually, honestly, regardless, you just got to listen. And the more you listen, that's how you close the deals, right? Honestly, it works for me
and you make them advocates, right? Even if you're B2C, you speak to your customers, they love your brand, they'll keep talking about it. I mean, you should bring Junkai to Nasi Lemak Burung Hantu. Talking about Nasi Lemak. They're doing zero marketing.
There you go.
Yeah. So what I was saying earlier in terms of understanding this and pruning and cultivating a good, not just sales culture, but overall culture, right? Is the fact that sales for your team is getting customers. Sales for CEO is getting investors.
Okay, that's true.
Right? You're never not speaking to investors, as much as you say you don't. You're always fundraising, good and bad times.
Right.
Now, it's been fortunate for Janio and yourself, obviously, is the fact that you've got some of the most venerated names in the VC space. You've got Insignia, you've got Sequoia, you've got Vertex.
Right.
And these are just the top 3 names I remember from the top of my head. I'm not using a prompter here, man. I remember this. See guys.
So you work.
Yeah. I mean, clearly, I've done my homework. I want to look at it from a multiple faceted approach here. One is obviously in terms of, people say you want the best investors in your cap table. You got them, right? At the same time, you also have to get investors that you can get at certain growth phases of your company.
Right.
You can't choose who you can at the beginning, right? But you seem to have chosen, literally from day one, the right investors. How did that happen?
Okay, I can debate that sentence, but
let's do that. No, let's debate. Let's debate.
Let's do that. That's what this is for. Let's debate.
No, I'm just messing. But the reality of it, I think for me, let's talk about lessons. I think coming back from the first section as well, it's about finding the right investors that fit into, one, the stage of the journey that you're at, and two, who also understand the vision and the path that you're going to take. I think these are 2 most important points I will probably give myself if I had to rewind the clock back by 3 to 4 years. The mistake that I made at the start, and again, this is in no way dissing anyone or whatnot. The thought process I had was, if I were to, like what you said earlier, right? So if I were to go after the biggest names on the street, that would help me in future fundraising for sure. And that is, to me, the best in class. I mean, obviously coming from a banking background, VCP background, if I have the names that most people look up to, my path is kind of set for me. That's a gold class. That's a gold standard. And that's a very short-term way of looking at a business, because that is, ultimately at the end of the day, a business is a business. Like, let's come back to the real world, right? The real world is paying customers who pay for your service over a long, extended, recurring period of time. That's the only thing that matters in the whole scheme of things.
Yep.
We can talk about, how inflated valuations are, how much money you raise at the end of the day. It comes back full circle. And fundraising ultimately is it's a process where you have to clearly manage expectations. I think that's something that I personally haven't done extremely well. And it's something I'm still learning along the way as well. I think that's something that I think for most aspiring entrepreneurs should not prioritize for the sake of prioritizing. What they should kind of look at it is, how can I use this as a toolkit to accelerate my business, which first and foremost needs to be fundamentally strong in the first place. If that business is not fundamentally strong, you're just excavating a problem multifold because you're setting an expectation that you can never hit. You're setting a target that you know will never line up. And what happens when expectation does not meet reality? You get a shit ton of disappointment.
Correct.
Right. And that's where periods like now, like last 1-2 years, where interest rates are going up and stuff like that, where a lot of these things are unraveling. And you see a lot of like disputes that's happening. Even for us, we also have those disputes internally as well. But I think I'm relatively blessed in the sense where I do have quite a friendly board or quite a friendly group of investors that kind of still believe in the business and at least believe in me to some extent. And we are constantly, recalibrating our expectations and whatnot. I think that's, at least for me, something that is quite important. I think how do I manage my current investors is really around just basic expectation alignment. Obviously, we also need to understand from their perspective, right? They are operating off a limited fund life as well.
Okay.
Right? They do have a tenure that they have to look at to show some DPI, right? I think that's something that if you understand from their perspective, to some extent, they are also your clients to some extent, right? And that's something that I think as CEOs or anyone who is managing a board in a corp dev role or not, just need to understand.
Okay.
That's the rules that you willingly subscribe to. Yeah, let's do it that way.
Regarding that as well, how many board members and how often do you guys meet?
Oh, that's a good one. We currently have 4 board members, 2 from Vertex, 1 from Insignia, 1 from Pick 15. For me, on my side of things, it's usually me and my management team who attend the board meetings as well. I like to at least give my team a chance to present what they have currently contributed in the team. Actually, also, I think this is also something that speaks to what I'm trying to promote internally within the team as well. Like there's a bit more transparency, so at least they know that what's exactly going on, right? Because I think where most gripes or disputes usually come in from a company perspective is, oh, I don't know what management team is doing. Oh, I don't know what the board is thinking. I don't know what this is doing or whatnot. As much as possible, I try to expose as many of my team to that as possible.
Okay.
Obviously, when the chance and requirements calls for it.
And how often do you guys meet?
We try to do it once a year.
Oh, once a year?
Once a year. But I do monthly updates. I know most of them have like quarterly board meetings and whatnot. But I think at the stage of growth that we are at, unless the situation calls for it, we try not to overly, let's say, index on it. This obviously is super unique to my situation where I think my board really understands like what we are going through and what we are doing. I try to do informal meetings. I'd rather prefer that because a board meeting, I think at the stage of growth that I'm at today, it's more negative than positive, right? In a sense where, yes, it's important to set direction and whatnot, but how often do you have to change direction? Once a year, maybe? Once every 6 months, maybe? Unless the situation calls for it. What I'd rather prefer to do is building one-on-one relationships with my board or my investors, and then keep them posted on, what's exactly going on.
How did you set that cadence, Junkai, to do once a year? Was it from the very beginning or?
At first, we started with once every quarter. Okay. Then over a period of time, we realized that, you're just talking about the same things. Because you're in a B2B space, right? You're basically talking about the same things over and over again. We're like, okay, look, given that we're operating heavy, we're operationally very heavy, that's our role. Let's not get distracted. Unless there's anything that fundamentally changed, we can reduce the cadence from once a quarter to once every
What
2
about
quarters.
Financial reportings? Do you do that monthly?
We do that monthly. So,
and does that require bots, presence, questions and stuff like that?
Oh, of course. I think for us, usually I like to give like a snapshot view of how the company is performing. The basic P&Ls should be inside. Your basic, let's say, things that are, let's say, highlight, lowlights, what you're working on, your pipelines, company team updates and whatnot will all be inside.
Okay.
Any questions they have, they can either reach out directly to me, or we can catch up during our monthly, let's say, coffee sessions, stuff like that. And I think that's also the beauty of being in Singapore as well, where they are literally 5 minutes away.
Oh, yeah.
Too close for comfort, lah.
That's true.
10 minutes away, right? Where you just hop down the street. Hey, for example, I'll just text some of my board members. Hey, look, sir, I'm downstairs. You have time for a quick coffee? Catch you out on business. I think that worked a lot more in my favor.
Okay, excellent.
And
that's nice as well, but not everyone has that kind of luxury.
Absolutely. And this is something I 100% recognize that is I think it's quite unique to myself.
Okay.
And I prefer that because at least I really know what they are really thinking of. rather than something that is, behind multiple layers and walls and stuff like that.
Right. Okay. Let's go a little bit on your business, right? So, moving in Southeast Asia, scaling across border for
Right.
PL, and you came in at a period that it's not something new.
Right.
It's quite a matured market.
It is. Yeah.
And how do you set yourself, and what are the things that you do to make yourself different?
Right.
Again, I know we've touched a little bit here and there about that, but a bit specifically,
Right.
Competing in matured market, starting a business, starting a startup,
Right.
in a business that is already, it's already quite matured. And
Right.
so what did you need to do, and what were you doing, and what are you going to do?
No, I love the fact that you talk about being a startup and competing in a very mature market. And I think that's absolutely what the reality is, right?
Yeah.
Because the market doesn't care whether you're a 100-year-old company or 1-year-old company.
That's now.
That's now, right? If you're providing value, you're providing value. That's it, right? And I love that fact. So that gives us, at least the way I look at it is, that gives us a level playing field. Today, the way we compete ourselves in the market is that, I think when we first started, the way our business is built is that we do not own any assets. We try not to do what our partners are already doing from day one. Meaning that if you are a 3PL that own a certain amount of assets in a certain domain, and you have a certain domain expertise in a certain country, it does not add any meaningful value if I were to invest in the same amount of assets in the same space in the same country, right? Because we're just going to be competing. So what we do as a company is we try to work together with as many players as possible, who each of them have their own strength, and we bring them together and pitch to our clients. The biggest difference between how we were when we started versus today is that when we first started, we competed as a 3PL, a digitalized 3PL, meaning that while I do not own anything, I bring everyone together and I sold myself as a comparable to an Aramex or a DHL or an SF Express and whatnot. Maybe cheaper, maybe faster, maybe a little bit in between. The problem with that approach was that when you sell yourself as a service provider or commodity, or let's say a 3PL, the market will view you as such. Your clients will see you as another one of many. And that was the biggest problem we have, because our core is working with everyone under the sun who have their own unique strength. So today, our state, and I think it's a lot healthier for us as well, is that the way we position ourselves and the way we sold our services to our clients is that use me as a way to work with everyone in the ecosystem. Use me as a way to manage your logistics services. Use me as a way to scale your business and focus your resources on things that actually matter. Things that actually, how do you sell more goods, right? Would you rather build an in-house logistic operational setup to manage your core business? Or if you can use that money to actually do more marketing, to sell more goods, would you rather not do that? I think that's the approach we took. And it's a lot healthier for us because our relationship with our partners improved a lot. In a sense where our partners no longer see us as threats or competition. Our partners sees us as a sales channel to tackle clients that they traditionally would not be able to get. For example, in Malaysia, we work with so many local SMEs who own trucks, who do trucking services, who do custom brokerage services, who do freight forwarding services. And these are businesses that they have built over decades. Why would I be so arrogant to think that I can do their job that they're doing for decades better than them? But now, the way I approach the problem is that, can I help you to sell your services to US customers who maybe they were never heard of you before, but because of us, we're able to bring you together with other local players together and create and package together a solution that makes more sense. You now see me as a way to increase and double your sales. And my customers sees me as a way to get access to players that they never heard of, capabilities that they never heard of. It creates a win-win situation on both sides. That is something that I really, really am quite happy with. The reality of it is logistics is a commoditized business.
Correct.
Right? Everyone is doing pretty much the same thing. Last mile, forwarding, warehousing. At the end of the day, like what we talked about earlier, it's about understanding your customer needs and requirements and services and whatnot. The way I see us existing is, can I help to move my partners towards that direction? And if I could help them move towards that direction, everyone wins, right? It's not, I don't want to reach a situation where it becomes where if I win, you die kind of situation.
Okay.
Where we can both exist, we can both thrive. I use your services, you use mine. And hopefully everyone survives and win.
Do you think this is your secret sauce kind of stuff? And
I think that's our essence.
The reason why your clients think, why Janio? I mean, basically.
Right. I think it took a while for us to really recognize that as our identity.
Okay.
And here's the funny part, right? When we started, because we don't have a lot of clients at the start, so we needed to find a way to get enough suppliers to work with us. and then also find enough clients to feed those suppliers as well. So I think that's the classic two-sided problem, right? I think for us, we had to substitute a portion of the supply ourselves by owning our own assets, by owning our own warehouses and whatnot. The problem with that approach is that one, you create competition against your suppliers, which doesn't make any sense. And two, your P&L becomes extremely heavy, right? Bottom heavy.
Yeah, it's like shooting yourself on the foot, right?
Exactly, right? I think the more important point is that we created two identities within the company itself. One, which is actually tech-driven, and two, which is actually operational-driven. You have to choose one, right? I think that was what we had to go for. Yeah, so today, at the very least, the way we look at ourselves is that, can I create an environment where everyone wins? And I think that's kind of the way we position ourselves to our clients. At the end of the day, does the client really care who you really use? Not really. I think, and if these are the clients that maybe they're not our ICP, right? They're not our ideal customer profile. Because at the end of the day, we need to work backwards from what is the pain points that they really have, right? What are the value? We mostly serve B2C, D2C clients, right? And for them is, can I anticipate when a delivery is going to happen? And can I anticipate that what my budget and my cost that I put for the year is going to be the same? Can I anticipate that deliveries will not be a detractor for my business today? Once you have those three elements in place, does it really matter if I'm using the person in red versus the one in orange versus the one in, let's say, blue? It doesn't really matter.
Yeah, as long as they get their work done or they get the things delivered, that's the cost that they're choosing you for the fact, right?
Exactly, right.
There shouldn't be other parameters on their decision-making factor.
Yeah, and my job is to take that pain away. That's it.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah, I'm just listening because of the fact that
I mean, this whole conversation today, it's like, we are just listening, and it's quite interesting because this episode actually it's kind of different in a sense that a lot of very unique things that you're sharing.
Yeah, and there's an Endeavor entrepreneur that literally told me last weekend. He always asks himself, "Why do you go into logistics?" Because everybody, like what I said earlier, his parents want him to be a doctor, a lawyer, or an accountant. Instead, his parents thinks he's basically shirtless carrying, parcels in the warehouse.
My parents think the same way.
Exactly, right?
Yeah, there you go.
So right now, what you're building is unique. You're building in a very, very, as you mentioned, mature, I'd say full of sharks marketplace. And everybody's trying to fight for the lowest margin. But the thing is, you've solved this by being friends to these disparate companies, which have been technically, frenemies for life. What's your vision for Janio as you scale, obviously for world domination, I suppose, and at the same time, or at the very least, will you think Janio 5 years from today be completely different from what it began 5 years ago with the advent of Gen AI and all these sort of cool tools, right?
Yeah. I think for us, we can talk a lot about Gen AI, but my own thoughts on that. I think for me, the vision really is, at the end of the day, if you are an operational head or the COO of any company, you should be able to make global supply chain decisions off your desk in any part of the world you're at. I think that's the vision for us, and we want to be the one facilitating that by working with everyone under the sun. And I'll give you an example for this. Today, we are only doing outbound logistics, meaning everything outside the fulfillment center, everything outside the warehouse. Means anything transport related to the end consumer like you or me, that is something that we specialize in only for Southeast Asia for now. APAC, maybe a little bit more than that. Where we want to get to is a stage where we want to work with more warehousing fulfillment providers. We want to work with more inbound freight providers to bring the goods into the warehouse. We want to work with manufacturers to help the procurement process, the manufacturing process, that every head of merchandising, every head of operations is going through that headache, right? So imagine if you're selling clothes, D2C products online. You need to think about where do I manufacture those goods? How do I bring the goods into my warehouse? How do I plan for my demand and supply, right? How do I make sure that I have enough inventory so that when I do my big campaigns that I have enough stock in my warehouse? Where do I host my warehouse? How should I route my goods through any part of the world? And ultimately, it's a function of so many variables. And the only way that someone of that level is able to make those decisions is by hiring a team to get those information first. And then based on their insight and their experience, give them that number that they work backwards towards to make that call. We want to shorten that process to 20 minutes, 15 minutes.
What is the process today?
So today, for a lot of, the way we look at our customers today, a lot of what they do today is they run yearly tenders, right? They run yearly procurement process. And what is RFQs? What are procurement process really a function about? It's about function of two things, right? One is it's a cost discovery exercise. and it's a capability discovery exercise. It's only these two things.
Technical, commercial, that's two things, that's all.
Yep, that's it. And what happens after that? They take a bet, right? They run a trial, they go through contracts and whatnot. And 6 months later, because of whatever internal blockers that they have, bureaucracy that they go through, they finally select a vendor. And what happens if the vendor screws up? You restart the process again.
Yep.
This process is extremely cumbersome, not to mention that you have to go through, move heavens and mountains just to just to make sure the contract is signed and whatnot. So if I can today, as a function of working with everyone under the sun, making sure every single, let's say, statuses is standardized, performance metrics are standardized, can my clients use me as a way to work with anyone that they want through a single click of a button? I think that's kind of where you want to head towards. And that gives players who are competitively strong in certain domains that they already have in each of these different countries or zones a way to touch or a way to serve multinational clients. I think it creates a win-win on both sides. Same methodology as how we are approaching the problem today, but maybe expanding it to multiple geographies or expanding it to multiple, let's say, domains, maybe moving a little bit more upstream. That's the vision for us, at least for the next 3 to 5 years. But let's see, I don't know, right? Like, there's so many things.
I thought we were going to say, in 5 years from now, I'm going to be teleporting stuff, bro. Star Trek shit and stuff,
Someone already patented that, but I'm not going to say.
But okay, we got to wrap up for this segment before we go for the final leg. This is going to be a very interesting one because Junkai came in through Endeavour via Endeavour Indonesia, where he failed the LSP.
There you go.
Right?
There you go.
And then when he went through the Malaysian one, he passed the ISP. So there is a reason. Why did you decide to go through the pain of going through multiple interviews, multiple LSPs? What drew you to Endeavour?
And why Endeavour?
I think Endeavour is a function of two things. I think one, if you haven't already know, I'm Singaporean. So there is no Endeavour Singapore.
Oh, yes.
Being an entrepreneur is an extremely lonely journey.
Yeah.
Right? Where you feel like you're doing everything yourself. Everything's working against you, right? The market, internal stuff, no one's ever happy at you. I think it's very heartening to see that there is a program out there or a community out there that have like-minded people who kind of understand what you are going through. And more importantly, I think I was just telling some of my friends in Endeavour as well that this is the only networking program that I've seen mentors and panelists willingly spend their money and time to attend. With no, there's nothing that they take back in return, right? And I was surprised that Endeavour somehow managed to institutionalize that. It's not, if you can do it, let's say for one single country, sure, maybe you have a very good, persona or you have very good influence and whatnot, but you managed to do it for so many different countries. And I was genuinely amazed. So I think for me, the community is one thing, for sure. The second thing is, I think if I could, I think we talked about this earlier as well, where if there were lessons that I can learn 5 years ago, would there be decisions I would have changed? Yes. And if I can't do it for myself, right, because I really gone through a portion of that journey.
Correct.
But if I can help, let's say, new entrepreneurs who are also trying to go through that journey to avoid the mistakes that I made, maybe they'll be more efficient, make smarter decisions and help. I think that's something that I think I would like to do more.
Okay.
Look, I'm by no means an expert or whatever, but I think at least when you look at Southeast Asia as a region, we need more entrepreneurs, way more entrepreneurs. Because one, we are breaking away from the typical stereotype of what a successful person really is. That's one. And the second thing, it's more entrepreneurs means more business. More business, it means it's good for everyone. Right? So I think, those are the two main factors I want to go for. And why Malaysia and not Indo again? Trying to be political here. No, I'm just kidding.
You put the blame on Adlin. It's because of Adlin. It's Adlin.
I'm just asking. No, I'm just asking. At a time where, one, I'm a lot closer to home.
Okay.
Right? We were part of Malaysia once. So that's one. The second thing is really around the fact that I think Malaysia has so much potential. So much potential. I think it's a lot of untapped ones where... So I was just making a joke with my friend, I think 2-3 days ago, where it makes so much sense for multinational companies or anyone to build a company out of Malaysia. Why? Anyone here, at a minimum, can speak 2 languages.
Correct.
Minimum. Right? And that's like bare bones, huh?
Yeah.
Average, 3, 4. How many markets can you tackle with that? That is insane. right? And when we're living in a world where it's increasingly globalized and whatnot, when you have that raw skill set, and that's part of your upbringing. It's not something that you have to learn or induce someone. It's just as a function of you being a Malaysian or growing up in Malaysia, you really have that superpower. Imagine the opportunities that you can tap on, right? And I think it's a waste if I'm not here enough, more and more. And I want to be part of that community as well. And that's also one of the biggest reasons why, for me, I chose Endeavour Malaysia.
Oh.
Also, the fact that you guys are so amazing.
Thank you.
And with that, Sundar, it's an amazing way to stop the segment, guys.
All right,
Before
all right.
Junkai tells the truth.
Yeah. I mean, it's nice, and two key points that you throw around. And one thing I like about what you're really saying deep from your heart, you want to give back, because that's where we all started. Me, Adlin, we're sitting down here. What we're doing, right? We're giving back, and we try to do as much as we can. I mean, end of the day, the point is, when it's never a right time. You can give back anytime. It's never a right time, right? So the fact that that's the key fundamentals of Endeavour, giving back, and you mentioned that's number one. And the second thing, you talk about the people in Malaysia, the talent pool, and a lot of people don't realize that what we have, we actually have a golden goose here, and nice enough, Junkai, Janio, from Singapore, coming back and utilizing the talent pool from Malaysia. And also recognizing that we have, and I like the part that he said, and it's true enough. The least we have, one person can speak two languages, and how many countries has that? And normal 3 is normal, and 4 is like So I think that's wraps out our
Second segment.
Second segment, not second session. Anyway, thanks so much, and I'm looking forward for the
Final leg.
So second donut.
Second donut. Wait, we're going to go to Drive Select Sport now.
And camera off.
Yes. Because you want comfort, All right, guys.
Thanks.
See you in the next one.
You quickly reach a stage where your ambition is your only limiting factor. So that 2 factors for me is something that I really had to really reflect myself. If I want to bring Janio to the global level, right? Do I have what it takes? And is my business built for that? Who is the next generation going to be like for the new generation of startups? The next generation of entrepreneurs are being in Malaysia, right? You have so many different cultures, so many different language. It's like this perfect hotbed of, new opportunities that you can tap on. What Malaysia really needs now